Welcome everyone to this live transmission. I'm very now with a very dear guest, Miles Johnston, and I had the pleasure and honor to meet Miles without his fabulous mug at that moment, but but a fabulous personality for sure. When we were in the Full Disclosure Now conference last year in Florida, produced by Brian, our dear friend Brian T. Singh, and co-produced by our also very dear friend Aida. So,
Ida.
yeah, exactly. So, well, I had the pleasure and honor to meet him there. He has very interesting topics like secret space program, ETA races, space stations, everything related to all that disclosure movement. And one thing that actually even, like I said, I really have to invite him on a show was that we were in the Full Disclosure Now conference this year, and we were at night. We were with also Lucas Alexander and Lauge from The Age of Truth. We were with Brad Olsen, Ida. We were gathering there, having a nice chat. And all of a sudden, the topic of the black holes arise. So when I listened to Miles' approach to that, I felt in so much resonance with that because it's the first time, besides Nassim Haramein, that I have heard that is following, that awareness, that state of awareness in relation to the black hole tech. So, not to say anything more for now, Miles, welcome.
Well, welcome. I'm very honored to be invited, and Brian and Ida have been putting these conferences on. This is second year, and this is a very, very important thing that they're doing. Full disclosure now, because the disclosure that we're being fed with from, shall we say, mainstream or the sort of UFO community is so far off the mark and controlled that it's not disclosure at all. It's keeping a narrative. I've been a fan of UFOs and things for a very long time, and one of the books I read, first books that were published in this kind of thing, was I think Flying Saucers Are Real. And the name of the author has just escaped me, but Donald Kehoe, I think, wrote. Forgive me if I get the name wrong. I'm not good at names. The point about it is that we subsequently found out that Donald Kehoe, and I hope that's the right name, Colonel Donald Kehoe, he was an asset of secret German intelligence. One of the things which with the Basis Project, let's just put the perspective of the Basis Project. The
Sure.
Basis Project was started because a guy's father, this guy called Barry King, his father explained that during World War II, at the end of World War II, he had found labs in Germany, and I possibly think edging on Poland and Austria. There were very special labs where they were experimenting with transhumanization. That's to say, taking soldiers and modifying them and heading towards a cyborg soldier.
Genetically modifying them.
So
Biologically.
the British found this, but also they found a number of strange-looking humans and a strange aircraft structure of some kind. So the point was that his father got ill because of what was involved there, and then they had to hand it over to the Americans. But what happened was those labs were taken to Britain, to this country, and they started to pursue this transhumanization issue with extreme vigor. And this is where reptilian aliens and greys are helping the Germans, because the Germans were involved with this. Anybody who was involved with this, Russians, Germans, Americans, the Commonwealth countries, they were involved with it, and they were making these programmed, generated life forms here in this country. And then a completely different source informed me, oh, they are for the lunar base. Now, as you well know, Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, and he is an American, and he has an American accent because he's an American. However, nobody told us that Britain was on the moon with their lunar base, or what they called the lunar base. So they needed these, or they were using these biologically enhanced transhuman aliens. Basically, we in Britain were making aliens under license. So you got the Greys in our bases, and you got the reptilians in the bases, and we're knocking off versions of them for our use. So that's the bottom line. So this idea that, oh, we'll be in contact and we'll have first contact. No, we are embedded. We're hand and glove with these beings, and we're going back to World War II. So there's another gentleman I interviewed. He was part of a very, very elite British military team called John Irwin, and he was specifically born. His mother left the family home in 1939. She came back to the family home pregnant with him. 18 years later, he's born in 1957 or whatever. He's but by 1957, he qualifies to join national service in Britain. So at the age of 17 or 18, he is so special, he goes straight into a very elite special British force called the 16. And this is 1957. So they were fighting in 4 groups of 4. But the idea that recruitment officers across Britain, with all the young people being compulsory to go to the army or the navy or whatever, the Royal Navy, they're not sitting there but saying, oh, we've got this secret special team, and we're wanting to find somebody out of all the recruits that are coming in the thousands. That guy doesn't smoke and he doesn't drink. We'll have that guy. There's probably a couple of 100,000 recruits who maybe didn't smoke or drink. The key to this was in 1939, when his mother left the family home, the British were already highly advanced in specialized super soldier technology. So it wasn't the case, it wasn't an accident that, or just a rare fluke that 17 years later, 1957, John Irwin, he published a book and all that, and that involves alien craft, ancient flying saucer technology and things. But it wasn't a coincidence that suddenly he's put into this special elite force where there's only 16 of them. It's because when his mother left the family home in 1939, she went to have him bred to be impregnated. So the British had an advanced genetic type of program in the 1930s. Okay?
Yes.
So that means that the whole infrastructure of the whole alien thing is much older and it's highly advanced.
Yeah.
And what John Irwin ultimately, his team, he was the youngest. He was the youngest one. But the point is, the information they retrieved in these special maneuvers and special things that they did were data banks, which had the data to align interdimensional portals, and they were thousands of years old.
Yeah.
This is a bit weird. That old interdimensional portal thing, and they happen to know about these things, and they recovered them. John Irwin went in and attacked the team, went in and a place called Jarabah in the Middle East. This is all happening in the Middle East. And they attack and neutralize a Bilderberger type meeting. Okay, so now we're dealing with the Davos crowd, that kind of people, and they're dealing with advanced interdimensional technology for super soldiers and the whole thing. So
Yes.
is it likely, just think about this, is it likely that the President of the United States, or for instance, our good king here in England, is going to stand up and say, oh, you see all those alien type things and the flying saucers? Yeah, we've been dealing with those for hundreds of years. We're accessing in our underground bases. We're knocking off people. We're taking children from school and putting them on special projects. And I'm sure you won't mind, but that's what's going on. And well, have a nice day and another cup of tea.
Yeah.
I think that might be the case.
Yeah. Well, you covered like a lot of topics, so let me go not one by one, but let me address to some of them. So for instance, when you talk about the genetics, all these genetic modifications, now that we are bringing so many artifacts to the human awareness, into the public eye, we can see all that encoded in different languages that are not only related to ancient any ancient form of language that we have we have recordings on or registered, also in what we could consider a very peculiar form of language that are mainly signs, very subtle signs. So this could be related to non-terrestrial form of language. And as we know, and as you said, there are many ancient artifacts, high technology, advanced technology artifacts that have been here in Earth even before the registers of Atlantis.
Well, right on that topic, the alignment of all the megaliths and all the energy fields around the Earth, ley lines, that was a major factor in World War I with the Germans. They were much more ahead of the British and whatever. But the point is that the alignment and the placement and the relative positioning of these things, it's not why you have a standing stone here or why you have a Stonehenge here and another one's over there. It's the relative position, and that of all of these things all over the world, it's the relative positioning of these things, and this is highly advanced mathematics.
Exactly.
So the people who put those there must have off-world knowledge.
Absolutely. And in relation to that, they are creating a pattern beyond the place where they are located at, which generates where there are anomalies in the Earth, like the electric current is way different than in other points. They are creating together a specific pattern, and so the language in the artifacts. And this leads me to the holographic field. Like one of the advanced technologies is actually coming into awareness, like all this theory of that we are living in a simulation and that we are a hologram. This is very much related to the space-time, like the space-time, the curvature of the continuum of space-time. So once we acknowledge that, for instance, all these symbols
Yes.
that all these symbols are in motion, then they are not anchored anymore to a 3D. They go all the way into...
This is the key. What you've mentioned is the key. The first thing that we've got to understand is that Einstein has been used as a major block in science to stop us talking. The term space-time locks our consciousness to 3D and then time. And then we think, oh, this is very advanced. It's a groovy thing. We're dealing with multiple dimensions.
Exactly.
And this is what happened with our physics in the late 1800s, where Maxwell's equations of the fundamentals of electrical science were highly complex. And the cabal, they specifically made sure that when they translated those equations, which were in what was called quaterns, when they were translated, for want of a better term, to algebraic equations, they made sure a lot of the key expressions were not translated. And that has locked us into a completely flawed and genocidal type of physics, which is why we're burning all the things we're doing with electrical energy. We're stuck with chemical rockets going up and down and flying about, and then people walking in with crash test dummies in it, that kind of ridiculous stuff. But meanwhile, the cabal, for want of a better term, has been able to use the industrial revolutions of the past 300 plus years. I'm going to say ever since Elizabeth I. A lot of this seems to go back to Francis Bacon, John Dee, 007, that kind of era. And that translated through to the present day, needed an educated workforce. They needed people coming off the land. They needed to create trains and boats and planes. And they needed to build that up so they could get the physical infrastructure built so they could make their spaceships here, rebuild them.
Yeah, and just about like all that huge topic is that for me, I want to transmit to the audience, to the tribe, that when we talk about science, when we talk about quantum physics or unified physics, quantum mechanics, astrophysics, and so forth, we're not talking as something external that you will never use in your daily life basis. Actually, if you understand how the universe functions, you will see that all the technology that you see outside is the result of reversal engineering as a translation of our biology and also of the universe itself. So the universe functions in very simple forms. Once we tune into those formulas, then we can translate that at many scales: biological scale, genetic scale, molecular scale, cosmic scale, and so forth. So when Miles was referring to how all these, all the ways that very specific groups have locked down information, when we actually restore our awareness of how to read the field, how to read the holographic field, how the universe functions, then we're rising our frequency, which mainly refers in going beyond that slow frequency that keeps us anchored to the gravitational field, and then being capable to emerge and generate a higher state of coherence. So we talk about patterns, we talk about algorithms, numerical algorithms, and so forth. When we see that our grading is not anchored to a static mode, neither our biology, then we start to interact with it from the holographic field. What is this? I don't know if you saw, Miles, I'm quite sure that you did. If you watched the movie, I don't even remember the name, but it's like these huge spaceships, like in forms of eggs, that like these giant kind of cephalopods come, and their way of grading are circles, and then the symbols ravel in motion.
I'm not too sure. Are we... The key, what you said there about static things. For instance, we would be taught in physics about electrical energy, right? And we apply these electrical energy equations to build computers or radios. The same equations can be used on many different applications. Yes. So, but by restricting our thing, oh, you only use that for electricity, the same thing can be used. These same equations at different scales all affect each other. So, for instance, the financial people will say, well, the economy is overheating. That's because it's an expression of too much stuff going through a wire. And if you overheat a wire enough, you get light from it, right? But they're applying this kind of thinking to the economy and our population. So we've got to understand that these laws of physics apply completely on larger and smaller scales. And so fundamentally, once you've got one set of things worked out, you can apply that in so many other areas.
Yeah, like for instance, why all this crave for technology from very specific groups that hold the power? Why? Okay, of course there are many reasons for that, but how I see it is one of the main ones is they are battling for energy, of course, translating into timelines, like inhabiting or configuring the best timeline for them, for a group, for a very specific, because if we see the space memory network, like we are just jumping from reality to reality based on the algorithms that we are activating and deactivating.
In the same way that you can get a lot of radio or TV or whatever it is on it, you just tune a different knob and it goes across. This all applies to many things. The key to it is we're all told that AI, it's going to take us over. Oh, terrible. Oh, God. They are telling us that that's a bad thing and they're scared of it. That's because AI could outthink them and be on our side. If you look at the way things develop, it requires lots of different colors, lots of different frequencies. What these creatures seem to demand is everything must be static. Everything, they must control everything. They cannot tolerate things that they're completely psychopathically incapable. They've got to have control. They must know everything.
Yes, you have it even in the origin of mass. The key that they were missing in that formula was the angular momentum. Putting into the formula the angular momentum, which is the speed, is the motion. And we can say, yeah, we know that we are moving. Of course we are moving, yes. But the way that they configure this reality is to keep us in a very slow motion that is almost static, and that is control, as you said, because then we are not expanding our consciousness. We are not using our nature, our multidimensional nature, to actually reach that space memory network and outload all that information that is within us. And one example that I want to say is, for instance, how can mastering the gravitational field could be reflected here right now in our daily life basis. I do think that our thoughts, when there is psychic attack, when there is, like loops of behavior and so forth, and I'm just summarizing it because it's connected to other things, of course, but they design everything so that those systems, those harvesting control systems, are very much configured into the gravitational field as how it is now. When we are capable to actually go beyond that to go beyond the gravitational field, then all those anchors to those harvesting control systems have no longer power on us.
Exactly. the thing about gravity is we don't know what it is really, and we just say it's a very important force and we all stand on the ground and whatever. Different ways of looking at the universe, the electric field universe, is that gravity is just a different phase relationship to the electric field force. So we can change things with our minds. We have got the manifestation abilities. And what are we doing with our minds? What it's one of these famous major scientific philosophical questions is Schrodinger's cat. You've got a cat in a box, right? Is the cat alive or is the cat dead? And then you take the lid off the box and the cat springs up and says, why do you put me in the box, and scratches your face, right? Or the cat is dead. So they then have this endless discussion about, well, is it dead until it, or we perceive it? We are perception devices. We can see pluses and minuses. We can see both sides of the same coin, where these creatures and these other types of entities don't seem to be able to have one thing. They've either one thing or the other. They can't think both. And that's why they need us so they can crawl on top of our works. That means we can demanifest and make these things fall away into the shadows.
We
are in charge.
I'm sorry, you were saying.
We are in charge. We have the manifestation capabilities, which is why they continually trick us into thinking we don't.
Yes, I agree, absolutely. And I think that that's related to the amnesia. You know how the amnesia is configured, because once we remember, then we know that within the infinite field of probabilities, within all those spatiotemporal constants, to say it somehow, everything has already happened. So if we want to manifest, we root to that timeline where it has already happened or it is happening, and then we're capable to activate and deactivate as we do it in our neural pathways, as we can do it in our genetic codes. You know, it's like one thing that actually for me it's sublime is if you see the black hole tech, it is the same that we apply to generate ATP in our mitochondria. And this is another thing that they have thought, that they have made us believe, that these black holes are devouring massive forces that leave no matter behind. You know, they suck it all.
I disagree with that.
Okay.
The thing about science is that they use children's language for complicated things like the Big Bang or a black hole. And then they sort of giggle at you. You're really stupid and I'm smart. But they don't actually tell you anything. All that happens is, it's a bit like when somebody says, well, we're just round the next corner, right? So you keep walking and, well, we're around the next corner. Things never stop. Things move into the shadows, or they move out of the shadows. And then what does moving in and out of a shadow means? It means that somebody's receiving light or it isn't receiving light. The point is that what they're doing is, when they say Big Bang, I hope I said that in an important way, so you're very impressed.
Yeah.
All they're saying is we haven't a bloody clue. And one of the key things about, you mentioned Nassim Haramein. You did. He has been correctly getting down to the modeling of the universes and how it all works, which is why his mathematics works. But he's dealing with toroidal energy fields. So when you move or switch things, or for instance, let's take music, right? Harmony and music, right? What if you change the frequency of on a sound wave, it goes up in frequency or it goes down in frequency. So we would hear that. But the things which change are the steady state bit, the nodes between the waveforms as they go up and down.
The intermittence.
In that node, there's nothing. Something's going from a light part down through something which we call nothing, i.e. zero, and then it goes to another energy packet. But that very thing which we call zero is producing all the other energy that's coming in and out of it.
It's shaping it.
Yes.
It's like the space itself. It's shaping the matter.
But if you, and that's for instance, some people are suggesting that we're here with physical matter, and we sit here on a rock. However, if you were to change the frequency of the solar system, and those nodes move, that's steady state nodes. That's a planet. That's simply a steady state within a dynamic system. Okay?
Yes.
So if you change the steady state in a dynamic system, it'll move, get bigger or smaller, change. So everything around us is always changing.
And that's what, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's what creates actually memory. According to recent researches, is like the asymmetry in between those massive celestial bodies. They create precisely gravitational field that are disturbances in the continuum of space-time. And the outer force is, bring outwards in a very specific way. I won't go deep into it. But the thing is that interaction is actually what they are using now to get information from the black holes, from galaxies, from, name it.
Well, that's the point about going through zero. You're going through the black hole, but because we don't know what's on the other side of it, and we don't see light coming from it, we call it a black hole. But it's still there. That's one of the things about when we're taught with these complicated, what we call complex number mathematics. We don't want to have people falling asleep here. But the point is, we're told, well, in order to make the electricity work, to come down from a transformer, a coil thing, and go down a wire, and you to sort of switch things on, we have to use complex numbers to do that. Now, the important thing here is those complex numbers don't exist, but they give us the light that's coming through the light bulb. Oh, but yeah, but the numbers don't exist. We just use these to do something. That's what they say. Obviously, something must exist in there, but, well, we really don't know what is happening. And the same thing with a black hole. What happens is we got a black hole. And they say it with a very important thing, and they get enormous. Anyway, let's not be too much of a comedy. But the point is, just because there's nothing that we see there, doesn't mean it's not there. It's like it has to be there. For instance, when you emit light, we have to have red, green, and blue, and that gives us white on a screen, right? However, if you want to do the same picture and you want to print it on a piece of paper, you have to think of the negative side of that. It's called CMYK. So in illuminating light, we have to have red, green, and blue. But in printing, we have to have the inversion of the colors called CMYK. That's cyan, magenta, yellow. Yes. And when we print that same picture onto a piece of paper, we get the same picture, but we've used a completely different way of doing it. Things are opposite, but they produce the same picture.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it absolutely does. And now that while you were saying this, it came to me, like when I was saying about the picture that primarily they gave to us about the black hole, people that are not into physics may ask themselves, but how would that truly influence my reality? Like knowing the true essence of a black hole, like you saying, we don't know what's there, but we know there's something there, okay, and how it functions. And the thing is that if we see that according to the most recent researches of what a black hole is, coming from a unified physics approach, we have those black holes as black bodies in our body as energy generators, call them chakras, call them dantians, call them meridians, that we are creating vacuum force every time through our mitochondria. So unconsciously, it's like a subliminal message. If you are afraid of black holes because they are astronomical forces that can suck you, then you will start generating an unconscious rejection against your own nature and not truly going to it. That's one aspect.
Well, that's what I mean by you've got the same picture, but one way you need this set of colors, and the other way you need the inverted set of colors. So something goes through the middle there of nothing, but it produces the same picture.
Yes, yes, exactly. And now that you brought that useful example, because it is, how would you say that that applies with what you were talking about, all these factions coming from one approach of reality and the other ones coming from another approach of reality? Where is that singularity? Where is that meeting point where actually we just move
Well,
forward?
if you get an orange, right? I don't have an orange here. Well, yeah, if you get an orange, the whole point about an orange is that it's got a color and we all agree it's orange. Okay? So everybody is sort of saying, well, that's an orange and that color is orange and we'll put some orange on the painting and we'll paint it. But we've all agreed that color is orange. However, have you heard of colorblind people?
Yes.
Right. Men get colorblind. They see the orange and they see what orange looks like to them, but what they see ain't the same thing that we see, but we're all calling it orange. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, there is a point
Okay.
of
So
encounter.
we don't actually really know that everybody is agreeing that this is something, but depending on who is watching it and whether they've got, for instance, they're colorblind, they're going to completely agree with orange, that that's what orange is, but they're not seeing the same orange we are. So how do we know that? Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
How do we know that what their color is? We all say the same thing, but what you try to see is different.
I absolutely agree. And with this, I would love to bring something to the table, which leads us to all these capabilities, these advanced capabilities that reside within us, and that it's up to us to explore. Like, I mean, in psionics, telekinesis, levitation, teleportation, and so forth. If we evolve in our way of communicating to one another, we're also reaching a purer form of perception of reality, which is frequency, energy, and vibration.
Yes.
And this is why I do believe that codes and light language and frequent like voice chants are so important, because you are going beyond the barriers of a cognitive thinking process.
Yes.
And you are tuning into the electromagnetic field directly.
And that is what they used crop circles for. I'm just down the road. We have crop circles here. I'm in Wiltshire and all that. One of the key things were that they were producing highly complex designs, and who was seeing what was what they were studying, which is why it doesn't matter who makes them. It's the point is that we look at them. Okay. So, and when people will see a certain design in it, and one of the people that spoke at Basis 2025 on my website, Basis 2020, basistv.com, every year I'll have a series of presentations. Some of them are in the studio, some of them are on Zoom, and we try to get them in a hall and people can socialize. And I've got a major full disclosure now conference happening in England, December the 12th, 13th and 14th in Pewsey. That's in Wiltshire. And we're going to have Randy Kramer over. We're going to have some guy called Brad Olson over. We're going to have some guy called Drago Reed. It's very important people. And we're going to have Ida over. And we're going to have Penny Bradley. But Penny can't fly. Well, maybe she can fly. She can fly an alien interdimensional intergalactic spaceship. Yeah, but this is going to be a major first time to have full disclosure here in England, on this side of the pond. And I'm very grateful for Brian and Ida to be able to. I think it's a bit like the king. You know, if you're not too sure about something, send your emissary. So Ida is coming to London. Now this is happening around about the 12th, 13th, and 14th of December, and I really don't think Brian has worked this one out. You're sending a woman to England, and she's going to go to a place called Oxford Street in a place called London at Christmas time, and it's your credit card. So, I mean, I know we've got some other issues with the conference that we can quickly go over or not go over, but the point is, I mean, that's enough. That's enough to grow his hair curl. It's enough to make my hair curl. Who knows?
That's a red flag.
Yeah, I don't think he's thought of that one. And the other little thing that was pointed out, that we've come from a very hot Florida, and I'm inviting these really fine people from the United States to a place called England in the middle of December.
Why do you already? Why are you doing that, Miles?
Well, it's the only date we've got, and I wonder if they realize just, you know, what an English winter is. It certainly never rains, and it's certainly never cold or wet. So I recommend that they pack a jumper, and that should cover them, and they'll be just fine.
They will assist very prepared. Perhaps Drago will bring his super soldier suit, and that will
exactly
have everything.
Exactly, absolutely. You've got it in one. That's a bit of fun, but we hope to have it. This is a big deal to bring this to try and push the boundaries here in the UK. And there's been some very good conferences put on by Steve Mira and Brian Fitzpatrick up, and they've had some big shows on that. But this is a big deal to put full disclosure now on the map here in British Isles.
So whoever wants to assist to that conference, how can they get their tickets? When are things going to?
Well, that's a very good point. We've only just come up with it, so we're going to try and have it. It's going to be a one ticket. One ticket, all 3 days. Apparently, you don't want to mention this. He might be listening. Drago Reed can talk a bit. We have an Irish comedian here, and she used to say, "Go on, go on, go on, go on, go on." And so I think what we're going to do, we're going to put Drago in a cupboard. In the conference while everybody else goes and celebrates things, and just get him to start, you see?
Yeah.
So after about 3 or 4 hours, we're going to sort of wheel him out in his suit, you see?
Yeah.
And open the door and then run like hell, and then he'll be on full power.
Exactly.
I don't think we're going to do that, but put a few. But it's very important that we get this kind of stuff happening here in British Isles, because
Absolutely.
The UFO community are out to lunch on this, and I don't think they've even got to lunchtime. I think they're still having their morning coffee on this. We've got to move things on, push the boundaries, and push this. The point was to remember myself is that there was a brilliant lady who came up with diagrams that you were showing very similar. She's in Norway, and
Oh,
she's called
really?
Selena Stenberg, and she recorded 2 long sessions explaining those types of diagrams that you're talking about. And then she found that by going around, there's a wonderful crop circle exhibition center here. It's open 7 days a week, but they don't, you may have to ask to get access to it. That's got all the wall murals of a magnificently laid out exhibition center here in Wiltshire. And it's got the whole history of the crop circle situation. And she recognized on several crop circles that there were very important signs embedded within what those crop circles were. So this, I'm not going to go into the debate of who made them and all that. It's the fact that we're looking at them.
Yes, I agree. And there are different layers of grading in one symbol. You can see the evident, and then you can see different layers holographically projecting for it, which, let's go, it depends on the level of consciousness from which you are contemplating it. When you access to that as a wholeness, then you are not only receiving huge upgrades within, you're actually accessing, in my case, I'm talking about my experience, I'm talking about how I remember it. So then you access to very specific submatrices that are intertwined, that are entangled to this reality, where you can actually quantum tunnel that information and bring and plant those codes here, you know, through a very coherent field, to say it somehow.
Precisely. Now, there was a we've all heard of the German flying saucer technology and how they got those big saucers and things working. What has been kept top secret, that since World War II, there was a bunch of British industrialists and scientists and careful major thinkers that had a study group which successfully developed for want of a better term, you see, a gravity, anti-gravity is not the correct term, because it's a 3D construct when you're thinking about gravity, and so that's why that term I don't like using. So they developed all this stuff, and this was going to be made into commercial flying saucers with an airline called Freddie Laker's SkyTrain. We're talking a good few years ago. He ran a very successful airline using TriStars. I think you're talking early 70s, mid 70s, maybe into the 80s, I think. And they were about to launch this whole thing using this actually successful anti-gravity technology. Again, it's the wrong term.
We agree on that.
That was about to go into full scale. You're going to have a place at Heathrow where these things were going to land and take off and go, whatever. That's how advanced it was. What happened was the people behind Qantas and BA and that sort of thing, British Airways and that sort of thing, they had a little bit of a chat and a discussion. And the key people who were involved with that research project, where they successfully developed a saucer technology, and which is what the Germans had and all that, and they just got a phone call. We've got a bullet with your name on it. You cease immediately. That's it. And that just shut the whole thing down. So that's 45 years ago, roughly, and so that kind of technology has been made available. But the point is that we should be able to recreate that and bring this whole thing forward. I mean, one of the interesting things which happened at the conference was an Israeli flag was, do I still have the print? I don't have the print. I might have it somewhere. There was an Israeli flag. You know the way when you go on the beach at the and you're in Florida and stuff like that, and you got aircraft pulling an advert, eat at Joe's for your burger,
yes,
or whatever. There was this, and a lot of people got a bit annoyed about it. They got a bit hissy fit in a tantrum over this. You had a small aircraft pulling an Israeli flag down the whole beach at Tampa. and then back and forth. We now know there's a little bit of a problem there. Problem number one is that you can't see any kind of wire or cable connecting the flag to the plane. Now, people have argued that, oh, maybe there isn't the right resolution or whatever, and it's and poo-pooed it with that. The other little problem was that if there was a cable, the flag is so far behind the airplane that that's going to cause very serious problems when they're coming into land. You're going to have to be practically at the end of the runway before that flag is going to hit the ground and then maybe get tied around a house or something else. Because it wasn't a flag and a plane, it was a TR series secret space program craft showing its cloaking technology. But the point is that the cloaking technology can be used as a projection technology. And they were producing a plane at the front and a flag at the back. Choosing the Israeli flag was just one way of catching people's eye. So that was a demonstration of what we would call holographic technology. And again, the term holographic is not correct. But that was a demonstration at the Full Disclosure Now conference in the United States. And you know what? We don't want anybody to really know. I'm sort of hinting that maybe the Ministry of Defense might be able to arrange something down here on the same sort of level, because there's been we have a space expo, space industry expo here in the UK about 3 times a year, and I was able to talk to the RAF Air Commodore, and a very fine filly she would be as well. That's extremely not the correct language to use. Filly being a female horse. It's what horsey people say about women. I'm in trouble now already. But the point is, you know, one of those TR3Bs, well, obviously they're so out of date now that really, why can't you just have one land, you know, in the car park where we're holding the conference? Because it's so out of date technology. You know, we can all have a wee walk around it. Maybe if you paid the pilot £50 or maybe £5, or you know, he could give you a quick trip to the moon and back in 5 minutes. It's just as a potential thing. And so we Brits could then be able to show you Americans that we've got our kit and we know where to fly it to, unquote, Mr. Nick Pope.
You know, now that you were talking about this holographic technology, and when I use, like, for instance, I get you when you don't like using some terms. Nevertheless, sometimes for people it's easier to grasp the full idea.
Yes, correct. Absolutely.
Because like, yeah, it's easier, you know. Already talking about these topics can be like a lot of integration. So for instance, it's like the pyramids. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, I've got a speaker talking about that
for the 4
on the
years.
4th of October.
Oh, well, for the 4 years that I was living in Egypt, I would go at least like 2 years every day to the pyramids. All of them. Well, the central one and the Great Pyramid. And at some point, the way that they were presenting to me, to say it somehow, it was more of a, let's use a more fancy word, holofractal projection or holofractogramic projection of themselves.
I've heard of other groovy words like biophotonic energy.
Okay.
How are your biophotons doing today? And the other little thing about that is my webmaster, Thomas, is a bit sort of annoyed that Richard C. Hoagland and Maria Wheatley, I love Maria so much, I love her. They've been talking about this pyramid on Mars. It was his analysis some years ago of the Martian photographs done by NASA, that this giant square the square structure on the surface of Mars was the base of a pyramid. So he suggested that. It's been taken up, but now Maria has and Richard C. Hoagland, you've got to say the C, otherwise he gets very annoyed, have been discussing that on Mars we've got a big structured base for a pyramid. And Maria has, I think she's going to be producing presentations on that. She'll certainly be talking to something like that at the conference in December. So this is now bringing the whole base structure on Mars. And the why pyramids on Mars? Why do we use a mile? Why do we use those same sort of measurements with these complex structures? And what is the relationship that why you would use something with that size of a wall rather than this size of a wall?
Yeah.
So these are all important things to realize.
I agree. And thank you for saying that, because how I see it is like there are many layers to refer to that. But for instance, if you have very specific measurements, they are not giving only a very specific proportion that is resonating in full coherence, pyramid to pyramid. You're also taking into consideration the frequency that each one of the numbers, how it translates into the space, into the space-time geometries, and how they create all this network that is consistent in the very specific algorithms that they are using, that of course then that does generate a bigger impact in the land where they are at, because it's like, what happens when you put elements in coherence in the same place?
Well, this is the thing. What John Searle, I didn't use the correct this guy's name, called John Searle, with the British gravity technology. He was using a thing called the law of the squares, and there's another thing called the Fibonacci series.
Yeah.
So the law of the squares is how he was able to work out how the magnets that he was using would have the energy field, the magnetic force going through the structure of the magnet. So instead of, when you make a magnet, is you just get all the stuff, cram it together, and you stick it on your fridge, or you use it in a transformer or whatever. But he worked out, using the law of the squares, that by getting the crystal structure of the physical magnet itself, those spaces between the crystals and the atoms worked like waveguides, so there was no loss. So that meant there was actually gain. So this provided that when he got these magnets working, rotating magnets in a very special motor, because of using the law of the squares, that meant that instead of this device getting warm, anything that gets warm is inefficient. It's not going to work, right? Some things can get very warm or not too warm, but they're not going to work.
Yes.
He used the law of the squares, and then the system got colder. And once the system gets colder, it's got a coefficient of efficiency greater than 1, and that's when you have gain in a I was going to say gain of function, but you don't want to use that word. Don't use that word, gain of function. But
to Kelvin,
this is where you get the lift,
close to
and then
0
you're generating this bubble of energy. So these things float in their own, their own environment, and then the laws of physics within that bubble still apply. But because it's in its own environment, some people call it like a pocket dimension.
Yes.
They can fly around like a bubble. Bingo.
Yes. It somehow brings me to something similar to the Bose-Einstein condensation, but it also brings me to the negative energy density field, you know, but in a more, you know, like indumentary form, like doing it. And thank you for saying that, because when we were talking about like the collective disclosure, you know, and a collective encounter, you know, regardless if we have been encountering to the galactic races since forever, I do believe it is coming from the people. You know, it's like
Yes,
now you see all the videos of people creating 0 point energy or plasma in their at their own houses, you know, creating the element through with elements, using elements that they have in their own houses. And now the scientific community is looking and saying, like, from the coming from the standard model, saying like, oh wow, they don't need us. You know, like they're doing it
exactly.
by themselves.
These crooks have lied to us for over 120 years with fake physics, fake engineering. So, and whilst doing that, they've been doing their secret space program, flying around, causing trouble, and doing whatever they're doing. And eventually, that's what I mean about the disclosure. When I talk to people about this, it's not, oh, please, Washington D.C. or the great king of whatever. They're going to tell us everything. No, they're never going to tell us the truth. They've been lying to us for the last millennia. They're not going to start telling the truth now. So we, the people, ordinary people, self-empowered. I mean, in many respects, a lot of the inventions in England or whatever, in lots of places around the world, they're somebody who's got a little bit of an environment so they can do experiments and they can work at things in their own labs. For instance, there's two very nice stately homes here. And for instance, but they're not really stately homes. They were an environment which gave somebody intellectual time and space to do experiments. So, for instance, Priestley discovered oxygen, how to make oxygen in this great manor house that we have not too far away from here. And then down the hill in the same sort of place, you've got a guy, Tolbert, who invented how to stick the photographic image into paper and make it stay there. So the silver iodide or whatever they use to do that. So if you have people just working quietly together, and this applies to the whole thing about this disclosure and the whole aspect of everything, just individuals doing their own little thing quietly without any big hubbub can have an enormous effect on what's going on. So the first thing you do, if you're ever doing anything or trying to invent anything, is don't use a computer, or at least don't plug it in to the internet. There may be good applications for some computers, but the point about a computer is it uses a fundamentally flawed computer language. It uses a 90-degree language. Things doing 90 degrees, bad. In the real world, harmonics are smooth.
Yes.
And they're using mathematics. It's not mathematics. They use 20-degree and 60-degree angles, but not 90. Once you switch something through 90, it's extremely inefficient.
Yes.
Now, what are they using which switches things through 90? These stupid windmills, right? It's the most inefficient way of generating any kind of energy, by using a big stupid thing on a pole and switching it 90 degrees.
You can even see it in the frames. Most of the frames actually stop the energetic flow due to precisely those 90-degree angles. Also, if you want to travel in time, it's like, don't go close to those angles, because then it's like you're getting trapped into the spider web. You need to.
It's because you flip dimension at 90 degrees. That's why if you are looking and people say, oh, I just saw something out of the corner of my eye. But if
Yes,
you look at it, you won't see it
blind spot. The blind.
because that's at 90 degrees to your primary vision.
Mhm.
You're looking into other worlds. So
Yeah,
that's a clue.
and you know what? I was doing the scheme of actually, if you put in a Cartesian plane space time and then TFL, traveling faster than light, then the very same angle that is correspondent to the blind spot is the same angle that is aligned actually to the traveling faster than light. You can just overlap the schemes, the diagrams, and it will show it to you. You were also mentioning about this discovery of the magnets and a very specific like wave flow. It reminded me like how important the terahertz are. Our good friend Ida knows about that with all the technology that she is using to help so many people. How terahertz are consistent in the waves that those waves are embedded in the forward state of water. Call it exclusion zone, call it liquid crystalline, uh, the crystalline liquid, I'm sorry, and that is actually goes into creating our pH more alkaline, into expanding out the levels of plasma in our blood, enhancing them, harnessing, and so forth. So there are consistent frequencies that actually, when we align our biology to that cosmic wave, then the disruption about the time, the false time where we are living at, creates not any more disturbance in our field because we're syncing up from the space to what we would call as time. This is how I perceive it, you know?
But this is like jumping timelines. But the thing about timeline is that the only reason this is again another miss thing from Einstein. He came up with the theory of relativity. I understand he came up with theory of relativity while he was on a train.
Oh,
The
yeah.
only thing that a train and a timeline have in common is that you have to catch the train at a time, right? So they then locked everybody into these time zones so they could catch a train. But if you don't need to catch the train, it's midday somewhere on the world.
Yeah.
Every 24 hours a day. So this is again the way that we shift the way we perceive realities by having the way we construct our imagination with faulty bricks.
Yes.
Okay, the bricks are faulty.
Yes.
And there's a reason why you don't have square bricks, and there's a reason why bricks are a certain length. Because if you don't have them the right length and they don't overlap properly, your house falls down.
Exactly. So yeah, I agree. And
I saw something there about the Fibonacci series.
you want me to? Yeah, sure. Fibonacci series is seen everywhere and is run on base 10 math, not base 12.
I'm not too sure about that, actually. I think that's why everything was always in dozens. I'm not too sure about that. I'd have to take.
Yeah. Like by taking into consideration the 10, just it's interesting because our DNA, when you do a cross section in the intersection, it creates a decagon. So I'm not saying, like just the 10 brought that to my attention, as well as the 12 strands in the DNA, or the 12 membranes, helixes in the anti-gene, which is what creates the RH positive.
Right. The little thing about DNA is the people who discovered it made an announcement after everybody had run around in circles and being very, very thinking, oh, that's the key to everything. DNA. We can determine everything about you using DNA. They made a statement saying that is wrong. It is not the answer to all questions. It's useful, but there are other factors involved with DNA, which does assign a given personality and whatever. There's all sorts of other things in the recipe of that. But because we have been again tricked with another distraction, DNA solves everything. It's not the case. But you have some very. You mentioned you sent me some pictures. Would you like to explain what those and light language and things?
Sure, my pleasure. I think we will have to even do a second show, Miles, because
having looked at those, yes, this is precisely what it's like. Yes.
So this is one of them, and actually, this one I translated by connecting with the Tesseract technology from very specific ET artifacts.
What is that diagram?
Well, this is a very interesting question because actually when it moves, it creates a stargate. So this stargate is connecting to 4 points in the cosmos, well, in the galaxy, in this galaxy, actually 4 points.
Well, I'm going to butt in there. Do you know what it also looks like? It looks like the cross section of the core of the Hadron Collider.
Huh. Yes. And it wouldn't
remember the Hadron Collider is using 2 counter-rotating plasma fields in the same spot, and that produces a scalar energetics structure which is outside 3D space.
And it wouldn't surprise me at all because, as we know, they access from the information of those dimensions and then bring it into, or through artifacts that they found, as you were just saying, So, yeah, I can see the resemblance. I was doing the translation of a crop circle a few months ago, and I could even see how they were. No, it was not a crop code. I will send to you the post, but I was actually.
Well, this is why if you're able to go to basistv.com and subscribe, yes. I think for £5 a month or something.
Subscribe to basis.tv.com.
Yeah, it's Selena's artwork and her things are very similar to that. That's okay. Selena Stenberg.
Okay. Yeah, I saw it. Yeah. And yeah, I will definitely subscribe and watch it. All of this, like for instance, these codes, they are the translation of a very specific language that are symbols that they can be put together in different ways and create different geometries.
And remember, the spoken word, when we speak, we are casting spells. We are creating.
Yes.
That's why music is so important.
Yes. And
it's interesting why they've altered the backbeat on commercial popular music over the years, because they have changed with the way that stuff works. To tell us more about this.
Yes, exactly. Actually, this is flipped. It needs to. Yeah, well, this is horizontal, but it's meant to go vertical. And this is a device. This is a device that it's interconnecting wormholes and projecting the energy that is coming from the wormholes into a quantum drive crystal. And that quantum drive crystal is nourishing a very specific network of other obelisks and then nourishing.
Well, this is another thing I'm to give Maria Wheatley some for further plug, is that they found these oscillating electric and magnetic fields in the megaliths. They are alive with frequencies and oscillating energy fields. These things, they're highly complicated devices. And also she's talking about how the setting sun, as it turns red, changes the acoustic wave that comes out of Stonehenge.
Hmm.
So
It
you have frequency translation in these devices.
and even generating a 0 point field in the surrounding, because it's the same process with the cinnabar. You know, the red color of the cinnabar, the long wave that it creates, and how it relates to the atmosphere. It's actually stimulating a 0 point field, you know, a high field of coherence. So
If you've noticed, we're having fewer red sunsets.
yes.
Sunsets, the sun's frequency is increasing, so we're getting sort of it's heading towards a purple
Yes,
color.
Miles, it's so important, as you said, to shift the frequencies in which we are relating to the technology and the music and so forth, like the 440 hertz that a German that used to be a commander or something working with Hitler that chose to change the frequencies to 440 hertz. The consequences of that are bigger than what actually, like, a daily life is like being in an arrhythmia, in a constant arrhythmia, and trying to sync up into the cosmic clock, you know.
I'm going to say something controversial here because
Yeah.
people need to really study what the Germans were doing there. Okay, it was a very dark era and there's lots of bad people involved, but they should look very carefully of what they were doing. I think that's a very important thing because they were really onto something and they were doing a lot of work on that. And they did a lot of the work in Ireland and also in Cornwall and in Great Britain.
Yes, yes, definitely. I
So
agree.
how were these made, or who's constructed these, or where were they
I
found?
I translate them. I translate them. I draw them, and they are based on the connection with different topics. For instance, this is very much connected to the gen ISIS, to the primordial gen. So this goes very deep into the genetics. All of these embed very specific structures of the mitochondrial genome, the circular ones. So, as we know, before there were 805 genes in our mitochondria. Today, we only have 37. So, this is, for instance, an example of the menorah for the use, and how, like, imagine that it's only like 180 degrees. If you double it, then you get the full spectrum. It's like reality. What How I say it is that reality was given, like knowledge was given to us only in one fourth, like only one fourth of
If,
information has
I
been.
think it would be interesting if you did a study of the logos of television companies.
Yes.
If you
Yeah.
look at the CBS symbols, and if you look at a lot of the symbols used on the British ITV symbols of the 60s, they did some fairly elemental, complex figures like that, where they had things would translate. So they were telling us something at the start. You know, every time their logo came on.
Yes, because it's all the time beaming into our unconscious mind. The thing is that they put so many logs of those informational spheres that how they come to the unconscious mind like it's segmented. You know, so we don't get the full spectrum, just part of it, and then it's like trying to put a puzzle together with apparently missing pieces, which are silenced genes, you know. So they are there. We just need to tune into the proper frequency, you know. Like, for instance, it's impressive how they obtain, or how we can obtain memory or information from the space. Is actually the same way that we activate memories in our brain. The same technology, how neurons function, is the same technology how you can connect with information from the space memory network. I think you will like this. This is
Yeah.
the translation
You
of.
know what? You know what that looks like? I just think it looks like something you'd find on a dollar bill or a pound note. Some of the codes, some of the imagery they use in our money, they're
Hmm.
very complicated.
Hmm.
It's not just to make it, not hackable or not. But this is amazing, and you've made this on a computer.
No, by hand.
My hand,
Yes.
for want of a better term, holy Jesus,
Okay.
this
If
is
you want to
amazing.
say, if you want to say another word, just let me know and I will do the beep. Okay, I just think uh,
I,
this was by the result of connecting with the Dendera zodiac in Egypt. There is a device like from another field holofractographically projecting and interconnected to inner Earth, actually, to well, underground, some underground.
well, I think NASA that Syed Noah, he's going to give he's going to give a presentation in Glastonbury at midday on October the 4th about what's underneath the pyramids. And I think it's like a lot of these things, what they're showing us is nothing like what they could show us.
Yes, this is what I was telling you about the different layers of emission that these codes have. Like most people connect just with the surface. However, when you activate your third eye, the third eye in your heart, the pineal gland in your heart, and so forth, or your memories, the different processes, you actually can tune into this
In
information.
some respects, this looks very like the way the brain is constructed. You've got two sort of halves and they're working together. That's the previous one. Is
Yeah,
this an A3 notebook you've got or an A2 or?
it's an A3. Yes, it's a small one. I have bigger ones though, but I always like to travel with a
Well, the
notebook.
American, that's a European paper size. I don't.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, I think no, A4 would be like the standard one,
Yeah,
but
but it would be too small. I mean, these are amazing. I'm very impressed.
thank you, Miles. I appreciate it very much.
And the way I see those, you can imagine the energy fields in those, and the hadron colliders, and the kind of force field energies that they're using there. They are not working to find God particles at the
No,
hadron collider. That's for sure.
exactly. What would you say about that?
It's like an amazing. Um, it's what happens when you get an awful lot of um, complex devices. See, this is the point. With this particular one, it looks like a mechanical thing, like a watch with
Hmm.
lots of wheels and things turning. But at the same time, there are energy fields intersecting there.
What I was connecting with when I translated this, when I draw this, it was the mechanical function in which the DNA actually was manipulated through gamma energy. So, and the possibility of having to be in a lower magnetic field, um, like not having this huge magnetic pull as in the as it.
Those aren't squares. They're sort of distorted, and they're not distorted, but they're transformed into different designs.
Do you want me to
It's like that you're looking at them from a different. This is very amazing. This is amazing.
Thank you.
I mean, you could just sit looking at that and going through it. And what sort of language or figures are you using there?
Well, I normally use a very specific founder galactic language that comes from the Council of Five. So mainly 5 type of writings, and then I also do writing in motion. So it's not mainly about the symbol, but the frequency that it is emitting. Emitting, for instance, these points, these dots would be, let's say, like a braille language, so,
Yeah.
or a Morse code. So they have that function. And what I do is, when I do this for people, I also record very specific frequencies with my voice, and using pure tones like 5201 hertz, that is in resonance to very specific discs that create cymatics, like very sacred cymatics, or brain waves, also based on the purpose. For instance, if you want to go beyond the continuum of space-time and bilocate or so forth, then alpha waves. If you want to remember, then theta waves. If you want to amplify the synapses in your brain and activate neural pathways, then gamma waves. Like it depends. This is why I was inspired. Like, I knew this is related to a device as well. I know it. However, I as it goes into different translations, this is also like memories, what was shown to me of very specific processes of genetics, and how so that actually I could explain how you can reactivate RNA. You know,
Well, it's very interesting that some megalithic structures, if you get them with a particular acoustic tone, they will activate. They work. But a lot of these structures have been specifically detuned so that they don't work.
Yes, I agree, and I do believe that keeps sustained, like that dissonance, the more that we actually bypass the our restoration to the 432 hertz, like to the true cosmic clock, because it's like perpetuating a reality of living in a false reality. Like, I'm talking about the calendar, I'm talking about the astrology, I'm talking about like the order in all those cycles, that before the equinoxes, solstices were the access to the time, to the consideration of seasons of time and so forth. And now it's a false, such a nonsense calendar, and that really creates this stability in our biological clock, because our biological clock is trying to tune into the right frequency, the what we would call as matter, the vessel. But this is why it keeps stuck, because the hologram can actually not come together due to the frequency. It's like trying but not fully syncing. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, this is a really amazing, highly complex diagram. But I'm going to have to call it a day, unfortunately.
Yes. I agree. Well, I'm happy that we were covering so many topics that inspire us to have a new meeting before, because we will also be meeting in the alien event.
Right. Yes. I'm going to that as well in Las Vegas.
Me too. We will
Me
be
too.
sharing stage there at some point.
Well, I'm going there with my colleague Colin and his mate, and my hostess Gemma Cooper. She's hosted a lot of my base's things. She's you've got to have a little bit of eye candy on stage.
Of course.
I'm running around at my conferences because I'm doing so much. I'm running it, televising it, and some people have noticed that maybe I may occasionally use verbal punctuation wording in accordance with my cultural heritage.
Well, you have to honor it. I mean,
yes, but yeah. I think we've said enough about that.
Well, Miles, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure. Where can people find you beside basistv.com?
Well, I'm still the Basis Project on YouTube. They were deleted. I was all taken down way back 2019, 2020, whatever it is. And so I'm the Basis Project on Brighteon, Rumble, and BitChute. But the way things are in the United Kingdom is we cannot actually see BitChute now with the censorship that's happening in the United Kingdom, which is horrendous. But I'm the Basis Project on that YouTube, Brighteon, Rumble, and BitChute. And I've got a sort of a sort of small channel which is for people who really just switched on. It's called Stepping Stones to Awareness, and that's on YouTube.
Oh,
and there are some fairly interesting interviews there. A friend of mine, Jane Shattuck, her mother, way back in the 70s and 80s, she was visited by shining beings, and they gave her a whole pile of stuff which she typed out on a typewriter, and she's been reading a lot of those letters. A lot of them aren't politically correct in today's world, but this is interesting that it seems to be messages from another world like ours which failed, and they're saying this world failed now as well. So we've got to really work very hard, every individual person. It's if everybody just does their thing
exactly
in a way that they can, it could be just whatever it is, your little bit can be very important. So everybody needs to do that and have faith and create a wonderful world in this very tragic time that we're in at the moment, with these people doing what they're doing in places that we don't want to talk about.
Okay. Thank you very much for those words. Is there something else that you want to say to the audience about the conference?
Yeah, well, very important. One of the people that is on Stepping Stones to Awareness is a guy called Syed Noah. He's a former head of antiquities and things at Luxor. I haven't got the title there, but he has noticed a very, very important encoded code within all of the Egyptian hieroglyphs, pyramids, statues. He's noticed that in statues or in stationary art, there is a rotation. The left side of the face, the left side of pictures and the artwork is different to the right side, and it's the same code. And what he's basically saying is it's when the Earth's crust moved, and the movement of the head is indicating that everything moved. And he's calling it the creation of the sun, but it's when the sun moved, but the sun didn't move, we moved. And that is encoded in the Egyptian artifacts. And we're getting close to when that may happen again. And he's going to be talking about that on, again, what's under the pyramids. And he's going to be talking about that on the 4th of October, Glastonbury, in the Avalon Rooms. It's a very small venue, because Glastonbury's, you can't book, it's very difficult booking places. Obviously, it's short notice. So that will be, I think, 10 quid on the door, and that's starting at midday on October the 4th in Glastonbury. And that will be a man from Egypt who's worked in Luxor as an administrator in the Egyptian government. He's married to a lady here, and he's effectively retired, but he's been working closely on this pattern that he's seen. And we've been doing a number of workshops on this where he's explaining this. He does it in Arabic, and he'll do it in English. And sometimes it's better for you to listen to it in Arabic and then get the YouTube translation. But this is a very important man from Egypt talking what he knows about what's happening. And it's very important that once the penny drops on this, you realize how serious it is.
Yeah, it's I love it. when you go into Dendera, the chamber, one of the underground chambers, you just go forward, and there is the image of Isis. You will see at a simple sight that they are exactly the same. If you look thoroughly, you will see that there are very specific differences, as you
That's the
explained.
point. It's in the detail,
Exactly,
right
exactly,
down to the number of hairs on one side and the number of hairs on the other side, the strands.
exactly. And yeah, I'm so happy. I told you, you're like, you come to know things that, like, barely anyone knows, and that I am in very much resonance with. When I found this, it was like barely no one knew about this, and now that you tell me it, this is so exciting. So we have to dig more
Once you
into those
look
topics.
at the details, there were a bunch of guys on seats, and they were all, and they looked all scattered. When they found them, they were all lying on the floor, on the ground, on the soil within this temple, and they all thought, oh, they've just left them there. Fortunately, somebody took proper pictures of it, and there was an intricate code as to why the chairs were sitting in the order they were sitting, and then some of them rotated round, and then the thickness of the plinth that they're on is a difference. The
Yes,
precise messages there everywhere if you look for it.
even
Okay, I'm gonna have to say goodbye.
yeah, I know. Just even the shape of the blocks, they are different because of that very same reason. Each one in the temples, the monoliths, like the big blocks, they are creating a very specific resonance. Miles, thank you so much. We will meet next time.
Good. Thank
And
you for inviting me. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you again.
likewise, likewise. Well, I want to invite everyone to the Alien event next September, from the 12th to the 14th. You will find Miles there. You will find myself there. We have also the upcoming the Bridge Expo in Dallas conference, organized by Rion and the Team of Light. Um, and well, the Alien event is organized by David Farman. So join us. There are also exciting events coming up, also related to the Full Disclosure Now conference. So, but we'll be talking about them later. And in the meantime, a big hug, heart to heart. Thank you, Miles. Thank you. And thank you, everyone. Until the next time.